there's been a bunch of sightings of these Robotaxi ground truth cars that Tesla's using in Austin and Texas. The latest that I saw, they found one in Georgetown, Texas, which is about 25 miles north, 30 miles north of downtown Austin. For those that are not familiar, Tesla has been testing this Robotaxi network in California and Austin. Austin went first, then it was California. And they've been expanding each region as fast as they can. In Texas, the Robotaxi network doesn't have a driver in the driver's seat. There is a rider in the passenger seat that's monitoring and making sure everything's working appropriately. They also have teleoperators at headquarters. But the interesting thing about the Austin region is that the person that's in the car right now, so me, this car's driving on FSD, it's driving itself, but I'm still responsible for the car. I have to pay attention. With the Austin Robotaxi, they don't have that person in the driver's seat, whereas in California they do. And so what's very interesting is now we're starting to see clues that Tesla is really looking to expand this network without a driver monitoring the car. In Texas, give or take, has about a 3 million, 4 million person population in central Texas. You're not going as far south as San Antonio or as far north as Dallas, Fort Worth, but you're still getting a pretty sizable chunk of central Texas. But what this is going to do is it's going to allow Tesla to have a very unique position in the rideshare market from a self-driving vehicle perspective that's going to eat away massively at Uber's market share in this area, for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. And the reason why is that we're already getting a lot of clues around how Tesla's going to plan to price this model, this Robotaxi model. Since Tesla introduced variable pricing for their Robotaxi network, which means that they're basically charging per mile instead of a flat fee. They used to have a $4.20 fee, then it went to $6.90, haha. But now they're doing a per mile price. It seems like they're doing a $1 upfront price cost, and then it's about $1 per mile. And then it looks like that $1 per mile shifts up or down depending on how much demand there is for the service, how many cars are available to be hailed, etc. This is a very small network right now in Austin. Even though they just invited more people to it, it's still extremely small compared to Uber and even Waymo that has, I believe, about 100 cars here in the Austin area. What that pricing has allowed Tesla to do is to have about half the cost of Uber to the rider. So in any given ride in this area, if you have access to the Robotaxi network and you're able to hail a ride in the Robotaxi geofence, a ride that would have cost you $50 or $60 with Uber costs $25 or $30 on the Robotaxi network. It's very consistently about half the price. So what this means now is as Tesla expands the region and they get into your Georgetowns, they get into your Marble Falls, they get into your San Marcos, maybe they'll start connecting Austin and San Antonio, which would be nuts, or Austin and Dallas, which would be nuts, but it's obviously that's where they're going. All of a sudden, you're going to open up this massive floodgate of demand for ride hail that doesn't exist today. And the reason why it doesn't exist today is because Uber is sort of really expensive if you really think about long trips or using it often. If you're going outside of city limits, the average Uber ride is about 5 miles, and the average dollar per mile is about $2.60. And so the average fare for an Uber ride in the US of about 5 miles, which is about a 15-20 minute ride, call it, it's $15 bucks, maybe up to $20 depending on that variable pricing, maybe even more with traffic, and then of course tip on top of that. The amount of people that are able to hail an Uber because of that price is by default limited, because the amount you would pay per mile for being transported is going to be significantly higher than, let's say, owning your own car. The average dollar per mile of owning your own car, the average car in the United States includes used and new. This is for personal use, not for commercial use, for personal use. It's about 70 cents per mile. So Uber right now has about 1 million cars on the road in the United States at any given time, and they're able to have that fleet of cars with a price per mile that's, call it 4 to 5 times higher than the, four-ish times higher than the average cost per mile in the United States. So that's 1 million cars. Now, we can very easily see that if Tesla were to cut that price per mile in half and take it from $2.61 to $1 or $1.25 or whatever that number is, all of a sudden you massively expand the total addressable market or the TAM of that service, because now you're allowing people that wouldn't have been able to hail an Uber to get to work or go to a place or go to downtown or go to the bar or whatever the use case may be. All those people that were priced out of that market all of a sudden have access to it because it's much, much cheaper. And in addition to that, the cheaper price comes with a huge bonus where Tesla is able to manufacture their own cars at will versus Uber having to attract drivers to their network. And Uber attracts drivers to their network by increasing the price that they would pay the driver by raising the fare for everybody. And this is something that's not well understood at all. I've seen people out there saying, Uber has this great business model, they have this moat, everybody goes on Uber to hail a ride. I think this is fundamentally incorrect. My hypothesis is the reason why people use Uber is because there's no alternative. There's no alternative to, I don't want to drive. There's no alternative to, I don't feel like parking. Or I'm drunk, Or my car broke down. There's no alternative. And so lo and behold, since there are so many freaking cars out there, so many modes of transportation out there that people traditionally use, when there are people out there that don't want to use those modes of transportation, meaning they have to actually physically drive the car, the only real alternative is Uber. And the reason why is because self-driving hasn't been solved yet. And so Uber's quote-unquote moat is not really a moat in the world of full self-driving cars. What full self-driving cars are going to allow a company like Tesla to do is to essentially flood the market with very cheap cost per mile transportation units that's going to fundamentally disrupt Uber. If Uber wants to get more people on their network, like I said, they have to raise the price. So let's walk through this exercise real quick. You are a driver for Uber, okay? I'm gonna make some money on Uber. I'm gonna go out there and do some rides. Very cool. Uber says, okay, my standard wage today that I think I can make as a platform, and this is how it works for Uber drivers. I think I can make about $2.50 from the riders per mile on an average. And I'll give you whatever the cut is. I think it's 70% or 60%, whatever the cut is, okay? Plus tip. Cool. So $2.50, I get 70% of that share. I make whatever, $1.80, $1.70, whatever that number is. Very good. Okay. Now Tesla comes in. And because Tesla has no driver in the vehicle, and because Tesla's insurance over time is going to be much cheaper because the cars are safer, and because Tesla can make each car for about $30,000 to $35,000 per unit, and they're very low maintenance because they're electric cars, and Teslas are known to be very reliable, and Tesla has figured out its AI brain so that they don't have to have that many monitors, okay? Tesla's able to come out and say, okay, I'm going to charge $1 per mile instead of $2.50 because I'm still going to make money at $1 per mile. As a company, if Tesla has about 10 robotaxis to one teleoperator, Tesla's going to make about 60 cents. It's going to cost them rather 60 cents per mile, which means that at $1 per mile, Tesla gets to pocket 40 cents of profit per mile. So if you're Uber in that scenario, the only way to compete with that is that you have to be price competitive. No one's going to choose Uber if Robotaxi is at price or even slightly higher and especially lower versus Uber, because the self-driving car offers way too many benefits versus an Uber. It offers privacy, it offers a fully customized experience. You can choose your own music, you can set the AC to whatever you want it to be. You get very consistent cars. So Tesla has the Model Y in its fleet. It's going to come out with this Cybercab, so you know exactly what kind of car you're going to get every single time. It's going to be quiet because it's an electric vehicle. You're going to have a more upscaled experience because Tesla vehicles are more like sort of like low to mid-tier luxury, sort of like think Lexus, Infinity type quality. Maybe Audi if you want to give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. And so you have all those benefits. And then on top of that, the price per mile is going to be significantly cheaper. And so if you're Uber and you want to compete with that, the only way you can compete is by saying, I'm going to match you. I'm going to match you and I'm going to also do $1 per mile or $1.25 per mile. But what happens when Uber does that? There'd be no drivers that would be willing to drive for the network because their time is simply not worth it. Think about that for a second. If Uber is forced to charge $1.25 per mile to compete against Robotaxi, and Uber gets to keep 30% of the profits, let's say, Uber can only give the driver like 90 cents per mile versus what would have been $1.70 or $1.80. So they basically have to delete $1 per mile of earnings for all their drivers just to compete with Robotaxi while giving an inferior experience because they can't offer privacy. They can't offer a fully customized experience, right? Because drivers are it's their car. They can technically do whatever they want. You can be like, hey, I want this music playing. The driver can be like, it's okay, nah, I'm good. How often does that happen, right? Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. And so what quality of car and what quality of driver are you gonna get when you suddenly cut the earnings of the drivers in half? Logic says you're gonna get basically no drivers on your network, and the drivers you do get are probably not going to give you the best experience, especially compared to Robotaxi. And so the rebuttal to that is like, well, Uber's gonna have self-driving cars as well. If Uber wants to compete with Tesla, they'll just, they'll partner with Zeekr, they'll partner with all these other Chinese automakers to make self-driving cars, and they'll partner with Zoox, and they'll partner with, Baidu. All these companies, and Waymo, right? All these companies whose scale, the amount of cars they can make per year, combined, is less than 1/20th to 1/50th of Tesla's current capacity. So what does that mean? Even if Uber wanted to compete with Tesla and Robotaxi, they don't have enough cars. They simply would not have enough cars to be able to offer those rides to compete against Tesla. Not only that, automatically, by doing that, by introducing the scale of a fleet that's going to be a fraction of a percent of Teslas, if you want to be cost competitive, you immediately disrupt your existing network by pricing your existing drivers out of the fleet, because none of them are going to be able to afford to drive a car to compete with your own self-driving cars that are a fraction of a size of Tesla's cars. So I hope this video makes, there were comments that came out of the Uber CEO where he said, the hardest thing about solving for autonomous is hardware. We don't really have that's the thing we got to work on. There isn't really nobody out there that's, that can help us or is available out there for us to partner with, or that's going to be the big, question of the time. You guys, there's a company that has already solved that. I'm driving in their car right now, It's just, it is absolutely mind-blowing to me that there are people out there that think that Uber has any future in front of them. The only future they have is that they have to have a gigantic pivot. Hans Nelson, my co-host on the podcast, talks about this on our previous pod. They have to have a gigantic pivot away from self-driving cars or even drivable cars into something completely different, drones, as an example. But again, let's think about that for a second. If you are a company that can make transportation units at scale, drone company, vehicle manufacturer, bus manufacturer, just name a transportation unit, either through the air or through the ground, and you're able to manufacture enough to compete with Tesla or be, let's say, half the size of Tesla, why on earth would you give up your advantage of scale by partnering with a third-party company when you can make your own app? And when you make your own app, you are the company that controls the ecosystem and the means of production. You can manufacture units at will. If I'm a company, let's say Farzad's self-driving cars, and I make 100,000 units per year of self-driving units, and my biggest competitor is Tesla, they make 2 million units per year. That's okay. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take those 100,000 unit per unit scale that I have, that I make every single year, and I'm just gonna strategically go into cities that I know I'm gonna be able to serve and compete against Tesla. Your San Frans, your Austins, your Miamis, your Las Vegas, whatever. I'm gonna keep those units, those places limited, and I'm gonna launch my own app. Why? Because I have the scale, to be able to serve a big enough geofence so that people don't have to wait 20 minutes, 30 minutes for a vehicle. And I'm able to compete on price against Tesla because I'm making enough cars to keep my cost per units low, and I don't have to pay a driver. And then on top of that, I don't have to give up 30% of my margin or whatever to Uber so that they can just run an app. It's crazy. As soon as a company reaches scale, they have every incentive to not partner with Uber. And so it becomes just painfully obvious that in the world of autonomous transportation units, drones, vehicles, you name it, Uber is worthless. They're worthless. The only thing they're going to be able to survive on in the next few years is their Uber Eats division. And the Uber Eats division goes away, completely away, once you can put a Tesla bot in the car. Just get out of the car, pick up the thing, put it in the car. Get to the destination, get it out of the car, drop it off, go back in the car, okay? It's not that hard of a problem to solve. Hard, okay? So then the biggest question becomes, what happens to our economy when drivers, delivery drivers, taxi drivers, Uber Eats drivers, Uber drivers, freight drivers, commercial vehicle drivers, what happens when all these jobs are no longer needed? Because there's going to be a company or a series of companies that are going to render that labor essentially obsolete because the human won't be able to compete on price because their time won't be worth. Like they literally would not be able to survive if they were drivers in that world. And if they chose to drive for a living in that world, they would make so little money that they won't be able to really do anything. So that's my rant. That's my rant for today. Tell me if I'm going up the wrong tree. So thank you for watching. A lot of changes coming, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.